Welcome back. This is the Well I Am podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, and today I'm sitting with Wayne Riddin from the aQuellé Midmar Mile. Hello, Wayne.
Hi, Kerry.
Thank you so much for being with us today, like a fish out of water.
Yeah, just before the South African Short Course Championships, so there's a lot of swimming going this weekend as well.
A lot of swimming happening. I have heard that the aQuellé Midmar Mile is the world's largest open water swim. Is that something we just say as a tagline, or is that a real thing?
No, it's a real thing. It's officially by the Guinness Book of Records, and we did that in 2008 when we were sort of peaking. I took over this event 34 years ago, and we started just making changes to it, which just drew more people to it. And we ended up with 14,500 finishes the one year, and we added officially as the Guinness Book of Records world record.
So that was 2008?
Yes.
You said now it's been going 34 years.
I've been organising for 34 years. This is 52nd year of the aQuellé Midmar Mile.
So do you know the history? Who was the first and why did it start? There was just a family saying, race you to the other side, or how did this happen?
Well, if you go back and look in the history, and I've got a young girl who's working on the history a little bit more, to get as much out as we can. But it started with our swimming fraternity in Pietermaritzburg used to drive down to East London to what they call the Buffalo Mile. And in the early 70s, you started having petrol restrictions. Okay. So they couldn't get there and back anymore. So, Mark Arbuthnot and a few friends were sitting, and so he's the founder officially, and he's our longest standing SEALs Swimming Club member. He passed away, unfortunately, last year. So, we honoured him this year. And he was fortunately at our 50th anniversary, previous year. So we were fortunate. Mark Arbuthnot then said, okay, well, let's go to Midmar Dam and let's do our own mile swim there. And that's how the event started.
And then, I do know that dependent, and I don't know so much about the Midmar Mile. I did it one time and I went from right to left to right to left. So I think I probably did 2 of the miles. But is it true that if it rains a lot, it's more than a mile, and if the water's lower, it's less than a mile? Does that change? Almost like the comrades.
Okay, in the early days.
Okay, all right.
In the early days when I swam, we'd have a swim run, okay, because it would be from land to land. The mile swim was across the, and then they raised the level of the dam, the wall, and then suddenly we had more water. So now what we do is we actually have a water start. Okay, because we always concentrate on the safety of the event. Yeah. What we did was we said, well, okay, let's have a water start, and then they run out at the finish on the same slipway. So it's actually a mile, even if the water is low.
With the aQuellé Midmar Mile, first of all, I know aQuellé's been with the Midmar Mile for many, many years. What happened over COVID? What did you do in 2020? And I'm not sure if there was a swim 2021, but definitely in 2020. We were just about to go into lockdown because it's in February, the swim usually, right? Yeah,
so we managed to do that year just before the lockdown. And it was the following year with all the restrictions on gatherings and things like that where the government put those. And then a week before the event, Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife, who look after the dam, said can't do. Okay,
a week before?
A week before, yeah. And so we then went virtual. And we then continued with the charity swims because the numbers were lower. So we still got the charity swims out on the Thursday, Friday. But we had to try and do a virtual swim throughout the country for the people that had already entered. So it was a really difficult year for us. People swam in their pools.
Really?
Yeah, they did. They did a lot of things all over the country, all over the world, in fact. And we got by. And then we've been building up since then, and we probably had about 80% of the numbers we had before COVID. So we sort of saying, well, we're not doing too badly.
Wayne, let's say someone is listening to this now. They have never actually heard of the aQuellé Midmar Mile. Maybe they're not from the country. A little bit about the event. How many days does it run? The kind of competitors we're looking at. And I know you mentioned the charities, and I'd love to chat about that a little bit more as well. So just a bit about the aQuellé Midmar Mile. What is it? How does it run?
So COVID did one good thing for us. We used to swim the charities on the Saturday and Sunday all in amongst everybody. So we used to have, they were called gold caps in those days, swimming what they called the 8 Mile Club.
Oh, and those people do.
They were doing all 8 miles.
So they would swim 8 times in the weekend.
So we used to have this huge group of 200-300 people. We would now have to transport back to the start in time for the next race.
Oh.
So what happened also too for the top swimmers that were now swimming, they were always in the front of the field. So you were battling to see who the winners are of that category, because the gold caps were always in the front. They were the better swimmers. They were going to be in the front in every race. So it was a little bit of a problem, but getting them across on the boats that we had and everything, I think we were spending about 150,000 Rand just on fuel, getting them backwards and forwards.
Sure.
But we were doing it for charity, so that part of the community side that we're trying to provide from the aQuellé Midmar Mile is important to us. And then COVID forced us to split it. Okay, so the only way we could carry on doing the charities was to put on the Thursday, Friday, and we found that it became more personal because a swimmer can then swim across to the other side, take 10 minutes rest if they want to, and then swim back, and they can swim their 4 miles on that day.
So they swim forward and back. They don't have to be transported to the other end. Oh, that makes sense.
So we basically start at the finish, you know, for the charities, and you swim across on the one side of the course, and then you swim back on the other side of the course, and they just continually go. So some people finish at 10 o'clock their 4 miles on the first day, and you've got a 16-mile group as well. They'll finish their 8 miles at say, lunchtime. And then they come back and they do it again on the Friday. And they're all raising the funds for charities, you know, which covers a huge group. I think there's 7 or 8 charities this year. And it really, we pride ourselves in the amount of money. We've broken 4 million Rand before for all of the charities. Over COVID, it dropped down to just below 2 million. We broke 2 million this year, and we're hoping next year we go over 3 million again and get back up. And the aim is always to, you know, can we get to 5 million, you know? So.
And the charities, who are they chosen by? How are they chosen?
Well, the original sort of group that started growing it was Pink Drive. You know, we always look towards the cancers. We've got Cancer South Africa there as well. We've got Choc. We do a lot for Choc.
I've seen those people, they swim in like cow outfits.
Yeah. So there's two different groups. So there's still the Choc Cows group that swim on the Saturday, Sunday, and they get dressed up into the costumes and
so
things
this is
like
the fun
that.
group. They maybe had
That's
a Jordan
the fun group.
before.
Yeah, they may be only swimming 1 mile, but they've got a part of it with the Choc group that's swimming 8 miles as well. So they raise a lot of money. You know, they get close to 1 million Rand.
Wow.
You know, so they're doing really well. Pink Drive and them are the main ones. You know, then we've got Happy Bundles. Okay, so, you know, that was a new company that we brought in after COVID. So, you know, their charity is doing really well. You know, they're part of the 16 miles. So they're part of the 16-mile group. So these people will swim 8 miles on the one day and 8 miles on the next day. So that's huge, okay. And it's we've got Gary Albertine and Rainer van Willig are the main ones that swim that every single year. They come back, you know. So it's hard for them. The Albertine family is a huge family involved in the aQuellé Midmar Mile. So it's really nice to have people like them continuing through the charities, you know. So the new groups that are in this next year, it's Mr. Price Foundation, one of our sponsors anyway.
Yeah.
So it's nice to support them. And it'll be interesting to see how we can sort of develop there on their side, because, you know, they've got the Max group, which is part of swimming and that type of thing. So they do get involved. They're involved in Comrades Marathon as well, which is quite good, because we have an Ironman section in the event as well, which includes the Comrades Marathon, Doozy Canoe Marathon, and the Midmar Mile. So they swim all three. So it's nice that we got sponsors that are involved in both Comrades and Midmar Mile now. So that's pretty good.
So you're part of that little trifecta of the Ironman. So someone in 1 year, you need to do the Doozy, run Comrades, and swim 1 mile, or
just have to swim 1 mile. It's
I
the
like
first
how you say
event.
just.
Yeah, just have to swim 1 mile. So that's on the first event on the Saturday, and they score points. It's not by time, so they score points relative to the fastest Ironman entrant.
Sure.
So you know, it's a small group nowadays doing that, because the Doozy has got less and less.
Yeah.
You know, with the river quality and everything like that, we hope that can pick up as well. So because I used
Yay.
I used to do both, you know, all of the events. So, you know, I've done my 10 Comrades, I've done 28 Doozies in my lifetime. So, you know, it's good to support those local events. You know, they're all Peter Marisburg events essentially. You know.
How many mid-miles have you swum?
Well, I won the second and third ones. But,
You won the second and third ones.
And then I used to do Ironman, and I won 5 Ironman titles in the 90s. Okay, and then I had a knee problem. But, so you look at the names that have been doing Ironman in the past. It's really good to go through. Danny Biggs was one of the first. I actually coached him to win the Ironman. Sure. In my early days of coaching. So there's a huge history with Midmar Mile. It's like bigger than people even think, So I'm trying to build that even more so that legacy just remains, irrespective of who becomes the next race director.
Well, I mean, this is the thing with Midmar. I know, because I grew up in KZN, Midmar was the fun weekend thing where people go and camp on the weekend, and some would swim and others would just be there to support. But I mean, we've got some big name swimmers who do Midmar. I mean, it's an event. So let's look at that from an elite swimming perspective. What are the kind of names that come through there? I mean, I know we've got our Tatiana Smith, who's is she not a KZN girl? I mean, does she come and swim the race? Some of the elite names, or tell us about that side from Midmar.
Well, one of the big ones that we sort of managed to scoop was Princess Charlene.
Yes.
Okay, so she came out in 2010 and came and swam the event. Because she's an ex-Olympian. And had Rake Netling and Roland Skimon, Cameron van der Berg, they all came and swam that year. So that was a pretty good highlight for us to have her do that. And then she got married the following year. So, that's why it's nice to have their charity involved as well. So, to have that continuation. So one of their ambassadors is Terence Parkin.
Oh, yes.
So now Terence is some huge number of events. I think he's on 40 or something like that. Now, he has the record of being the first person that's not in the leading batch to actually win the race. So when he was 13, he came to the event. Nobody really knew him. Now he's deaf, so you can't really talk to him, at that stage. And he was training with Graham Hill at the time, and he was in the blue batch, which is the second batch.
Blue batch, so that's the colour of your cap.
That's the colour of the cap. So for safety, we put them into 5 batches. No more than 300 in a batch, so that they go off at 3-minute intervals.
Okay.
So because he didn't have a seeding time, that's why seeding events became quite important to get times on the database.
Right batches.
So you get so your front group is likely to win. So Terence, I picked up a blue cap that was coming up quite high up in the red caps in those days, and I said we need to check that guy's time. Okay, and we saw that he actually won the race overall from the second batch.
Oh, but because he went 3 minutes later, he didn't win.
So he closed the gap. So he actually beat the person who came onto the slipway first at 13. That was that 13 and under age group.
Oh, okay.
13 and under age group. So, but it highlights things that you got to watch in the race, to see that you don't have somebody coming from the white batch at the back who actually wins it overall.
Because someone's not seeded and then their time is really quick, but because they don't necessarily get out the water first because they started 3 or 6 minutes later.
So we got to watch that very carefully. Okay, people don't even know that's going on while you're racing.
How often does that happen, that someone who's not seeded?
It's happened about 3 times in the whole history, so where somebody from the back batch has come through and got onto the podium. So now we actually say that the first batch, for the podium presentation on the day, we only deal with the first batch.
Oh, really?
But we do monitor it and everything. Because chip timing changed everything, so we can see the time straight away. The chip timing has been a huge bonus for the aQuellé Midmar Mile.
We've got obviously the elite swimmers, and I mean also the name Chad Ho comes to mind. I mean he won a couple of times, didn't he? As well?
So he's like the Bruce Fordyce of comrades. Yeah, so he's that name in our event, and he comes every year as well. So he's also starting to win in the 31 to 40 category now. So the nice thing is that we have the age groups in 10 years going 31 to 40, 41 to 50, and so on. And what people haven't realized, we used to only go to 51 and over probably 30 years ago, and we're now on 71 and over.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask you. Yeah. When it comes to the ages, because I mean a mile swim is almost impossible for some, but for those who are a little bit swimming fit, a mile seems very doable. So you have I don't want to say your less elite swimmers, but people do it as like a fun thing as well. What is the most aged person who's finished the race, and how old is the youngest?
Okay, the youngest has changed over the years because we obviously are very nervous about putting young kids. Some parents are going to drive the kids too young into the water, and we could have a potential problem out there. Yeah. So we tend to not publicize the youngest one too much. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay, don't want to start that competition.
But the little guy was 5 years old who officially finished it and swam the whole way. It's a little bit difficult to know who's where he swam the whole way now with the safety swimmer devices that we provide for the swimmers to swim with, because people start holding on to those and have their ready
those are
swim
almost
a
like
full
little
mile.
torpedo buoys.
Yes.
Where are they attached to?
They're attached to the waist.
Okay.
But it doesn't hinder the person swimming. So, they can swim just as fast with that.
Do the elite group also have to have them?
They don't have to, no. So they can opt to, it's optional, so people to finish can then wear that. Gary Albertine was the first to actually show that you can be a top swimmer and actually swim with this device. Okay, so he's in his 50s now, ex-South African swimmer. He's showing the people that you can swim with this device. So it's quite a good advert for us, that this, we don't ask people to buy these. We have them available at the event, so we pump them all up and they grab them if they feel they want them.
And they just leave them at the end, or
and we collect them at the end and everything. We brought them into the event to actually be part of the safety.
Well, it's understandable. With the young swimmers, if they do use the flotation devices, do they still consider that they are finished?
Yes, they do, but we do monitor it that they're not holding on. If they're holding on, the lifesavers will go and pick them up if they're just holding on to it too much.
Oh, I see. If they're just literally bobbing out there.
Yeah, so if they're just holding on and they're not really moving and they're using that as a flotation device, then the lifesavers will remove them. So they've got to be swimming.
And so do you have your lifesavers the whole way, just stationed, swimming with, and then are there boats or Malibu boards or something that someone can go to?
So the safety is a huge thing for us because we have the youngest swimmers going in. Part of the Cook family is the youngest guy that has finished at 5 officially. And then Lorna Cochran, and we lost her last year, along with Micah Busnott, same year. So Lorna Cochran swam it at 91 years old. And her history is incredible because she used to have 4 generations of their family coming down all in one to support her swimming.
Wow.
So it was huge. It was really special. And then she was 99 in our 50th anniversary, and we even spoke to her on the phone and everything.
Wow.
And she said she'd love to be there, but she was too weak. But she sent a message to everybody and wished us well. But she started swimming at 76.
Oh, really?
So that's the thing that people don't realize, is that she was 91 when she did her last one, but she only started at 76. And if you go and look at the oldest finisher, for numerous years she was the oldest finisher as she was going up to 91.
Do you know offhand what her times were-ish?
Oh, she used to be around the hour mark. Sometimes she swam hour 15 minutes, but we let them swim because the first race we give them an extra 15 minutes because we include the disabled group as well. So we have a big disabled group that is part of the event as well. So we put them in event 1 on the Saturday. They start at 8:15, and we have an extra 15 minutes for them to finish.
Okay, so let's break down how the race works. We know our youngest and oldest, so I presume that's your age categories that you can enter from like a 6-year-old up to whenever, if you want to swim. How do the days get split? Because you've mentioned a Thursday, a Friday, you've mentioned a Saturday. Who swims on what days?
Okay, so the progression in my 34 years of madness in a way, because as we were growing in numbers, you had to go always looking at safety, and you couldn't put 3,000 people in the water at once.
Yeah.
So it used to be just the Ironman event 1 on the Saturday, and then used 4 events on the Sunday. When those 4 events on the Sunday started getting too big, we then said, well, okay, we need to create more of a social atmosphere, people just wanting to finish, people who want to swimming as teams and everything. So that's how the current Saturday developed. Event 1 is still there, where the Ironmen swim, the people that are doing Comrades Doozy.
So that's the Saturday morning? Okay.
Yeah, so what we did then, we moved also anybody who was 71 years and older, we've put them there so they've got an extra 15 minutes to swim. And then the disabled swimmers are who we look after. So we put all the disabled swimmers into event 1. So their categories come out of event 1.
Okay.
And we then concentrate there. They used to have a 1 start. Okay, we got 1 or 2 second starts and things like that when people want to do a special thing or something in the event. We had Merchiston celebrating their 150th year by having the kids swim and let them swim in a separate batch.
Okay,
as
so like
batch
a special
number 2
event
on the Saturday, so they could swim all as Merchiston, old boys and everybody getting together, fathers swimming with sons and things like that.
And what, did they ask you for that? Did they pay you for that?
Yes, no, they came and asked us for it. No, we didn't ask for any payment or anything like that. I'm a Merchiston old boy, so...
Oh, okay. Oh, I
So it
see.
was, you know, thing we all local. So we
Okay.
kept the local touch of the event
Yeah.
there, you know. So what we then did was we had 3 team events after that. Okay, because everything happens 1.25 hours apart.
Okay.
So we used to have a company relay. So companies, if you were employed at that same company, would come along and enter. So we had a race for that group of people. We had a race for non-company. So if you wanted to choose your own team and get a sponsor to say, well,
Okay.
it's, you know, so we'd have that team, and then we'd have the family team. So the family team used to be 4th on the Saturday.
And
But
now?
then we found that it used to get fairly rough by 12 o'clock when they were swimming.
Oh, right. Not like
So the
not like
water
they
used
started
to get
fighting
rough.
with each other.
Yeah,
like
no,
actually
no,
the
no.
water. It's like, no, you okay. That
So-
sounds like my family swimming.
So it was
yeah.
actually Terence Parkin who sent us a message to say, why don't we swim the family event, the second event on the Saturday? Because
it's
normally calmer.
calmer.
Yeah, so we actually moved it at his suggestion. So that's how important Terence Parkin is part of the event as well.
Yeah,
you know?
he
So
is.
he's also a past winner of the event, and just he comes down every year, and he was the first one to swim 16 miles.
Sure.
And we allowed him to do the 16 miles on the Saturday and Sunday. So when everybody is swimming towards us, he was swimming back on the right-hand side, back to the start. So, you know, the lifesavers looked at me as though I was nuts, you know, and I said, he's an accomplished swimmer, you know, and you know, and we had a paddler obviously paddle with him the whole way, you know.
The question that I want to jump to is because I know a lot of people watching are not elite swimmers, but they want to go and try it for the jaw. When is the jaw swim? So the people that are just like, we're going to try and do this. But also, it's still something we take very seriously because I know some people go, oh, they're going to have a big jaw the night before, have a bit of a party, and then swim. But I mean, really, it's still a sports event. You've got to take very seriously. I mean, you can't be getting into the water super hungover or whatever. So just a few tips for the people that want to try it. They're not elite. They're like the
Yeah.
fun people. And also, what are the rules with that?
Okay, so the fun day was sort of designated as your Saturday. Okay, so the
Saturday
teams
is
could
fine.
get together and they could have fun. But again, we keep the same rules. Okay, so we do encourage people. If we actually have somebody who we feel is reeking of alcohol arriving to register, we won't let them swim.
Okay.
Okay, so we do screen that because it is a potential hazard for us. Okay,
Yeah.
and we don't want to put our lifesavers. You know, the Navy come there and support our event every year. We have the South African Police Force diving unit there.
Wow.
The support that we've had from that group throughout the years that I've been organising has been amazing. You know, and they hold that whole event together. You know, we used to even have Jack Haskins, who's also passed away last year. Unfortunately, he used to have a dog in the early days. He'd have a dog on his boat, and he would sweep each race. At the end, he would actually paddle across with the dog. The dog would pick up the scent if somebody had got under the water.
Sure.
And he would give me the clearance for us to go and start the next race. And that's how we used to do it in the early days, to ensure the safety. So safety is always going to be the number one.
And look, I can't, as much as I'd like to not bring it up, I know that in the last 10 years, we did lose Tristan, but I feel like we all are very aware that we can't put something like that on a race organizer or on a race. And I also know that in the last 10 years, you've upped the safety. And from what I've also heard, the last 10 years have been clean, as in we've had everyone finishing. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've had a clean record since then. Tristan, his brother, is now out in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay, so they'll be coming out because it's the 10th anniversary for him. They'll be coming out this year. So we will be supporting them as well to be there. We obviously don't want to highlight something that's a negative for the event. But for us, it wasn't really a negative. It was just teaching us what we had to try and tell the participants out there that they need to be careful, because you don't know if somebody's got flu the day before and then they come along and they're really determined to swim it and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to, that's why our numbers per batch, we reduced that even more, so that we don't have somebody kicking somebody in the face. And, you know, we've had that type of problem. Unfortunately, we've saved that person. But we must give credit to those lifesavers and the SAP and the Navy and everything for looking after the safety. Because obviously, when somebody goes under the water, it's no longer part of our event. So the decisions that get made become SAP decisions.
Yeah.
And Jack Haskins had been on the you know, as the person that we would deal with every year, and he was such an amazing man. He had done rescue stuff all over the world. That's how good he was with his dog. So, we now have his son, by the way, that has now taken his place at the Midmar Dam.
Really?
Yeah, so his son is actually the one supporting us in his place.
Wow.
And then I brought back a former manager of Midmar Dam, Matt Jackson, to come in there, and look after that portfolio that basically Jack Haskins had. So we keep the people involved. We don't move on to somebody new because, there's stuff that, you want the continuity because
100%.
it's an important event for not just, our area, for the province. We wish the province would support us a little bit more.
Well, this is what I was about to
And they
ask
don't really.
you, because some people listening now maybe are going, you know what, this is something I'd love to try. Even if it means I'm going to enter, I'm going to arrive there on the day, maybe I'm a bit nervous and I don't end up swimming it, but my intention is to do it. Where do we get tickets? What is the level of swimmer I need to be in order to do this? Like, when it comes to the training, and I know we don't have much time left, but is this a 6 months of training? Is this something I can quickly the week before get out a couple laps? How do I enter? When I go there, where do I sleep? Is it a day trip if I'm coming from Durban, for example? Tell me how I get there.
Well, it's going to depend on the level of each individual.
Okay.
Okay, so how long you would need. Okay, but we do have a 12-week program that you sort of say, 3 months, you need to
And
build
is that
up.
online? You can find
Yeah,
that.
you can go online and look at a
Perfect.
program. There are 3 different levels. You can start off at level 1 and then progress to level 2 and 3. But generally, if you're an accomplished swimmer, so, if I hadn't been swimming for a few years, I could probably do a week's training and go and swim it. But it'll be slow, but I'll be able to swim it and not have a problem. But
Finish
for
it,
some of
yeah.
the people that finish the event, it's quite amazing what you see, okay? And they've got their own little goals, okay? So it's people of all shapes and sizes. And that's what we pride ourselves in the event. It's not just about the winners. It's about the participation. And it's that participation that is important. So they can contact local Learn to Swim people. My biggest concern has always been that 50% of our entries come from the Gauteng areas.
Huh.
Okay, so they travel down to it. Okay, so
Come on, KZN.
KZN is actually only 42% of the entries. Okay, so that means that we're not coming from KZN to support local events as
But
as
you know
much
that
as
happens.
others.
When you, we know when you go and travel somewhere and you meet someone and they're like, you've done this and this and this. I've lived here for all my life and I've never done those things. And I feel like Midmar might be one of those things as well, where we're so used to it that we forget that we need to do it.
Yeah. No, so they can look at. There's lots of club programs around throughout the country. The coaches in South Africa are really good coaches. We don't get as much credit as I think we should.
Yeah.
1 or 2 individuals do, but there's actually a lot of people out there, okay, that are doing a great service to coaching and the development of swimming. That's why we have Chad Leclerc Foundation, part of our charity as well. So Chad is involved in a big way. We're actually doing a presentation to a local development group here in Durban, Olive Tree, because I identified them and I spoke to Chad, about them, and he's gone there and supported them. So they've got a little track
Brilliant.
record of helping people that are in need, homeless people, and everything. So there's a community involvement there. So it's nice to see Chad Leclerc involved with that.
And do I get tickets online? How
You
do
can
you
enter online, yes,
Yeah?
you can enter. We just revamped that whole website and everything. We're trying to make sure that we're moving on with the trends as they change.
Yeah.
I'm old school.
You can like a QR code scan for your entry.
I'm old school with that.
Do you
but,
have to have done a swim in order to enter?
Well, we want you to. Okay, so if you're a novice you've got a no time coming to some aQuellé Midmar Mile, you're going to get put in the batches at the back. So we want you, for safety reasons, okay, to go and do a swim somewhere where it's a seeded swim recognized by us, and not just any arbitrary swim. But we want a time that you can swim the mile possibly, or 1 kilometer.
In what? What is the time you would like?
Well, if you're showing us you're going to be approximately 50 minutes in a mile swim, we know where to then seed you in which batch.
Okay.
Okay, so that you're swimming with people your same speed.
Okay.
It's nothing worse than starting in the white batch, which is the last batch, and you can swim 25 minutes, and everybody in that batch is going to be swimming slower. But the batch in front of you, you're going to catch them up as well, because there's only 3 minutes difference between the batches. So we want you to do a seeding swim for us, safety wise. Go and do a seeding swim, and then you can enter the event. And the timing, the database is all linked anyway.
Yeah.
So when you've done an event, somewhere else in the country, even that's done with Finish Time, who are our sort of main timing people, we own the chips, and then they come along and do it. We developed this when Mr. Price actually owned the timing system, and they've Finish Time have now sort of they I think they time most of the events throughout the country. They do comrades. So they've got the experience, and the database is all sitting there. So it's nice that you can actually go and get your history of your race in Midmar and comrades and everything.
So I know we actually have to go, but I've got to ask quickly 2 things. How much is an entry for Midmar for like a social swim? Singular.
You're asking me those questions.
Okay, so it's online. I'll find it online.
It's all
Secondly,
online.
for wearing purposes, you will give it the cap to us, I presume, when you get there. But other than that, is it a goggled event? Is it wetsuits, costumes, or bikinis allowed? Do you have a rule for girls, G-strings, no G-strings? That kind of thing. Does it have to be a full costume? And these are real questions.
Yeah, okay.
We must talk fashion, Wayne.
Okay, so yeah, we will make sure that you're covered.
Okay.
You can't go in there somewhere if you're not well enough covered.
But then can you be too covered? So one of those wetsuits that make you float, is that not allowed
So
either?
if you wear a wetsuit, you can choose to wear a wetsuit. But if you come up onto the slipway and you're part of a category prize, then you won't get the category prize.
Okay.
So a lot of triathletes do that. They swim in their wetsuits and we identify them when they come up. So that's why we do a manual backup results at the same time. But there's a lot of people that do that. They go on to do Ironman afterwards and everything like that, because that's sort of like in March and April and that type of thing. So, but yes, we make sure that you are properly covered.
So a full costume for a girl,
preferably,
and whatever a guy's comfortable in, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, what are the guys swimming? Baggies.
The open water swimmers, the top ones, will wear a suit that they're allowed to wear.
I see. Yeah.
So there are certain suits, but they're so expensive. Nobody who's just an average swimmer is going to go and buy that.
Yeah.
But normally they're swimming in the jammers, what they call jammers nowadays, which is like cycling shorts.
Yeah.
But a slightly more streamlined for them and that type of thing. But we still wear the old, what we call the Speedos.
Yeah, of course.
Sort of thing that it's a brief. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people are really swimming in briefs nowadays. So yeah.
Well, Wayne, I want to say thank you and good luck for all the preparations for the 2025 aQuellé Midmar Mile. 52nd, 53rd. 52nd.
Yeah.
We will see you there. I don't know what capacity, but we will see you there. Definitely.
Well, come along and swim, then you can see.
I mean, look, my intention is, but I don't want to say it out loud for in case someone holds me to it.
I've committed to 8 miles through Terence Parkin, so I've got to do that on the Thursday and Friday. Yeah, so he's challenged me. So
I reckon I can commit to 1 then.
So I think you can commit to 1 at least.
I can.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next year. Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you for watching the While I Am podcast. And if you enjoyed what you saw, please like it, share it, and subscribe. If you have any comments, comment below. We will get back to each and every one of you. And if you would like to know more about us or you want to get some products, whileiam.co.za.